Okay, so in today's podcast, we're going to talk about how our food beliefs as parents might be shaping actually our kids' eating habits.
Yeah, yep. So some say from the moment we're in the womb, we are constantly picking up information about our environment and our place within it. These early experiences from the womb and from when we're born form our beliefs. Beliefs about food, relationships, ourselves, safety, and the world around us. We keep learning and forming these beliefs by observing our parents, our caregivers, the media, and our community.
Can't believe it's from the womb.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. I understand from once we're born, but wow, womb.
Yes. Yeah.
Crazy.
Because you're picking up on the state of your mum's nervous system.
Yes.
You're picking up on voices. You're
Yes.
picking up on the environment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And then that lays down kind of how you're going to respond.
Yep.
And your nervous system, which is pretty wild.
Crazy.
And amazing when you think of if you are in the womb in a safe environment, you don't need the same kind of, I guess, patterns in your nervous system as if you are in the womb in a war zone.
Yes.
Yeah. So nature's so wise.
It is.
Yeah. So anyway, from these very young ages, we form these beliefs, and these beliefs guide our life and our decision making. And a lot of these beliefs are unconscious. We don't even realize they're running within us. And this is because we've had them for so long that they're totally unfamiliar.
Yeah.
So as parents, we need to remember that children watch and learn from us all the time. They're like little sponges, and this is how we're wired. We're wired to just soak everything up so that we do learn quickly. We learn how to be in our community. We learn how to kind of be in relationships with one another.
Yeah.
But we need to remember that kids watch how we interact with others, how we interact with them, and how we nourish and care for ourselves. This early learning influences how they perceive themselves and the world around them. So how we approach and relate to food, how we talk about food, what we choose to eat, and how we eat makes an impression upon our kids.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Modeling is so powerful.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really important that to remind parents to kind of check out your beliefs around food and eating.
Yeah.
Because if we don't kind of check that out and we remain unaware of our beliefs, we're not able to heal what's kind of not supportive or do anything different. And we tend to just then pass these beliefs around food and eating onto our kids.
Yeah. And like you said, so many of our beliefs we're not really tapped into, we're not really conscious of. We have to make a real effort.
Yes.
To actually, understand or recognize. Quite often I'll tell myself a story.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a belief I didn't realize I carried.
Yeah, totally. We've almost got to unpack them.
Yes.
And so imagine they're all in a lunchbox.
Yeah.
You got to unpack them, take them all out, have a look at them. And as an adult, choose, like, does this belief really fit who I am now and what I value now?
Yes.
And if it does, great, keep it. And if it doesn't, we can chuck it out.
Yes.
Yeah. We've often inherited beliefs from our parents and from their parents. And when you think of your mum and when she was a parent and when she was a kid, the world is so different.
Isn't
and
it?
So what she needed to put in place, you don't need to anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is great if you have healthy relationships with food and eating, and if you've been raised in families where they have healthy relationships with food and eating.
Yeah.
However, for some of us, we've had painful relationships with our weight, with our self-image, and with food.
Yeah.
And so I really do believe it's an amazing gift that you can offer your child when you do your own healing around your beliefs and around your relationship with food and your body. The first step to healing is to allow yourself to be gently curious. So to actually open the lunchbox.
Yep.
And so that you can become aware of what you believe. And like I said before, if your beliefs and the behavior that goes with them serve you anymore. In this process, it's super important to be gentle. We're so good at beating ourselves up.
Yeah.
And to remember that all along you've been doing your best. So we live in a culture that doesn't encourage feeling. Our whole culture teaches us to, have a drink, have a smoke,
Pick up the phone, scroll through.
totally, turn on the TV or eat to shove feelings down. And this is actually seen as more reasonable than actually sharing your feelings with somebody or not being
crazy.
okay.
Yeah.
So we talk about creative adjustments and how as children we creatively adjust to our environment. And this creative adjustment is what kind of, again, forms these beliefs and behaviours. And so if we are raised in a family where mum and dad don't have capacity to be with our big feelings and instead they hand us some food, then we creatively adjust to that. And so when we start feeling feelings, we reach for food rather than for comfort from people, because that's what we've kind of been raised with and we've creatively adjusted to.
And it's hard as a parent, isn't it? Because you have a distressed child.
Yes.
And often the thing, I know as a foodie myself, often the thing that I first think of is, oh my God, maybe they need something to eat.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And
totally.
I mean, I fortunately would feed my kids good food, but it was still food. And I understand for a lot of parents it might be, well, stop crying, I'll give you a lollipop. We've all done something along those lines. So there's no blame or judgment here, because I definitely will put my hand up to having needed to, quieten my kid down on an aeroplane or something, and it's like, here, I know you're upset, but just eat this.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, that's like, very normal.
Yeah. But we're talking big picture stuff here. We're just,
broadening it out a little bit and kind of just supporting you to get curious about, what do I do with food? What's my relationship with food? What do I see? What happens for me when I see my kids with food? Like I was saying before, unfortunately, in our culture, shoving our feelings down with food and denying our feelings and their wisdom does lead to loads of issues and difficulties in life. I see a lot of clients and they are out of touch with their feelings and they're out of touch with kind of their bodies and with what they need. And unfortunately, when we are out of touch with what we need, it's really hard to kind of set goals for yourself, to set priorities for yourself, or to actually put boundaries in place, because our body kind of gives us a signal of this feels good, this doesn't feel good, or this feels safe, this doesn't feel safe. And when we're taught to kind of not tune into that and to avoid feeling, then we kind of lose access to the wisdom of our body. And again, I think of where our culture, our Western cultures come from.
Yes.
There's been 2 world wars and a Great Depression.
Yeah.
So if I think of my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, it really wasn't safe to feel. They actually had to find ways to just get on and rebuild, because everything was kind of, they'd lost brothers and
I'd never thought of it that
siblings.
way.
And so that's kind of where it's come from.
Yes.
And so they learnt to drink or eat or work or distract themselves from these massive feelings. I can't even comprehend what they would have felt. And so now, though, we can choose different things and we want different things for our kids. I want my kids to be able to sense into their body and to know when they are full or if they're hungry or even what their body needs to eat or drink. So super important when we're raising our kids, and again, this is really easy to say and difficult to put in practice, is to try not to bring food into the emotional arena and to remember that food's for nourishing the body and the senses, and it's not about soothing the emotions. And there's so many ways we bring food into the emotional arena. And we are both, I know I've definitely been guilty of this.
Yes.
And me talking about it is just to kind of hopefully help you be a little curious and
And just open your eyes to this actually even being a thing. You know, sometimes you say things and I'm like, oh my God, is that a thing? Like, and then I'm aware of that thing, which is a good thing.
Yeah, totally. Just to build awareness.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So we bring food into the emotional arena when we treat for good behaviour with food. Or we offer some food when our child is upset or sad. Like sometimes that's what we had as a child. So because our beliefs and behaviours often form when we're really young and we're so familiar with these beliefs and behaviours that we remain unconscious about them, we don't realise.
Don't even know you're doing it.
No, that we keep on kind of doing the behaviour. So I know for me, like I'll unconsciously reach for food when I'm bored. So for me, it's more when I'm bored or I've got nothing to do.
Yeah.
But for some people, it's when they feel sad or alone or upset. And we've learnt to fill our bellies beyond the point of being full to numb out or to support us to manage uncomfortable or painful feelings.
Boredom for me is definitely my trigger.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll find myself like zoning out, feeling a bit bored, and then I'll just find myself standing at the fridge.
Yes.
How did I even get here?
Yeah. And I'm not even hungry.
I've just eaten.
Yeah.
Like, hang on.
I'm the same. Something for me that's new is I've learnt to really go, you know what, I'm not even hungry.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas before I just would have kind of shoved it in.
Yeah.
And I find that when I go home to my mum's house, not anymore, but I used to just go to her fridge.
Yeah, I do that.
Like, wow, they're just this pattern of behaviour. So it's super important to remember that food impacts us on all levels. Yeah. So when we're feeling emotionally fragile, we reach for comfort food. Or food that helps us to put us into, that food coma that people talk about, so we can numb the feelings down. Or if we feel numb, we might reach for sugary foods, chocolate, or stimulating foods to pick us up and help us to feel more alive. So it can be really helpful to start to notice your patterns, your behaviours, and your thoughts around food. And even the way you kind of label food, is it good or bad, or whether you're naughty or good for what you ate or what you didn't eat.
Yeah.
So
even good food, bad food.
Yeah. So kids, like I said earlier, are watching us all the time. So just notice how you talk. Like if you're worried about your weight, your kids will notice that. If you make healthy organic food for the kids and eat something different for yourself, your kids will notice that. And to remember, kids generally adopt our habits and behaviours. So they do what we do, not what we say. So if you ask your kids to eat veggies and ask them to try lots of different foods and yet you don't, then they're kind of going to follow your example. Yeah. Or if you're anxious around food, or if you find it difficult to sit and enjoy a meal, they'll generally follow your example. Again, not to shame you, just for you to get curious around, what do I want to hand down? What's helpful for my kids? So some things to do to help keep food and emotions separate. The first thing is, get curious about your beliefs. Do you allow yourself to enjoy sitting down to a meal with your family, or are you worried about weight or find it hard to relax? Ask yourself, what kind of relationship do you want your kids to have with food, and what changes would need to happen to create an environment where that would be more possible. As much as possible, aim to be more open-minded and avoid telling your kids what they will and won't like.
Yeah, this is a massive trap. I've seen this a lot. Like I've seen it's one thing that I was really adamant. I was kind of slightly fussy as a kid myself. Yeah. My husband's has a really broad palate. Yeah. So I think that really we offset each other a little bit. Yeah. But I was kind of a little more cautious. Like just naturally, that's our relationship. I'm more cautious and wary of everything. He's more all in, guns blazing kind of guy. Yeah. So even with food, it's one thing I really appreciated with him is that nothing was off limits with the kids. Yeah. And quite often, I probably wouldn't have thought to give my kids certain foods that he did. And yeah, I've definitely seen and even gone to do it myself and say, oh, you won't like that, or, oh, that's spicy, don't touch that. Instead of just letting them find out that it's spicy and making a decision themselves.
Yeah.
My son, I let him find out what spicy food was and he decided he loved it.
Yeah.
He loves pickles, he loves jalapenos, he loves all different kinds of flavours, because we've just let him find out for himself rather than me imparting my dislikes on him.
Which is so empowering when you let them kind of work out their palate and you don't kind of limit them or regulate everything about food for them. Super important to not label food as good or bad or naughty.
Or even, I think even things like even healthy.
Yeah.
Because,
true.
I mean, like you
It's
said.
to do that all the time.
Healthy food. Because I think unless a child has had an experience with being like seriously critically unwell, they actually don't know what healthy is. They have no concept of healthy.
Yep.
And with good and bad, it's like, especially when you're saying, have this, it's good for you.
Yeah.
And we all do it. I've done it my entire life with my children. But then when I really think about it, I'm like, sometimes my kids actually didn't want to be good.
Yes.
They wanted, like my daughter particularly, wanted to press my button. So,
reach for the bad food.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just because I'm using the term good. This is good for you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Aim to avoid linking food with emotion.
Yeah.
So eat this and you'll feel better.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a big one.
Yeah. I agree. Avoid rewarding good behaviour with food. So like that, clean your room and you can have a Freddo or eat.
Done that. Oh my goodness.
Really try to avoid any negative self-talk about food and body image. And I get that this was so ingrained in our culture. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the social media things at the moment about women that were raised in our era, like in the 90s when we were kind of teenagers, and just the language around your body.
Right.
And how destructive it was for the body image. So I get that it's kind of normal for us to have this constant concern about food and weight.
Yeah.
But I know for me as a mum, I didn't want to hand.
No, I was going to say this is one thing I'm not guilty of. The others, all of the above so far, I've definitely been guilty of. But I'd say for me, I've been lucky enough not to carry that kind of belief around with me or ever linked
food with
weight and that kind of thing.
And your self-worth. And
that exactly. Yeah.
Really big one.
Yeah, I can see why it would be.
Yeah. Encourage your kids to try any new whole foods without becoming emotional around their response. Mm-hmm. So trying to be neutral at the dinner table, trying to just be neutral with food.
Casual.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot throughout our program, Raising Well-Nourished Kids. Yeah. How emotion, kids really tap into that emotion, and we go to the table anxious that they're going to actually eat what we've cooked. We're doing ourselves an enormous disservice.
Totally.
And, if we haven't already, I know we will be talking about this more and more and more throughout this podcast as well.
Yeah, yeah. The probably one of the most important things is modelling a healthy relationship with food and eating yourself.
Yeah.
And because kids really do what we do.
Yeah.
So when it's normal to just sit down and eat a plate of veggies, it's your kids just
and also when you seek pleasure in like my daughter actually said to me, we went out for dinner this week because it was her birthday, and she actually said to me, oh, I'm so glad that we all love eating together. She actually recognized that.
What a gift.
Yeah, it is. It's such a gift. And that was a win as a parent for me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So important to celebrate opportunities to come together with family and friends around food. I think we're really wired for that as humans, and you look back through a lot of different cultures and
all cultures.
So much
comes back to food. Yeah, it really does. And that's why we're here, really. I mean, we're talking about beliefs and behaviours, but we're linking it to food because food is just such a huge part of everyone's life. Yes. We need it to survive.
Yes.
And we definitely need it to nourish ourselves, but also our relationship with other people.
Yeah, yeah. So please remember we're all human. We all have our issues, beliefs, and ways of doing life. Please be gentle on yourselves and remember that all of us are resilient and capable of change. And if need be, explore a new relationship with your beliefs and with food.
I love this episode. I always love listening to you speak. Thank you.
Thanks.